The road ahead was almost empty, a silver ribbon cutting through endless pine and wet asphalt. The hum of the tires and the muted classic rock from the driver's radio had lulled me into a kind of uneasy silence. I'd been staring at the little overnight bag on the seat beside me for miles, trying to ignore the tremor building in my hands. Then my phone rang. Lyle's name lit up the screen. "Did you bring the bag?" His voice was careful, as if he were balancing on ice. "Yes, it's right here," I answered automatically. There was a pause too long for an ordinary call. Then he said it. "I love you, Mom." Not quick and distracted the way he sometimes tacked it on at the end of a conversation, but deliberate, heavy. I gripped the phone tighter. Lyle hadn't spoken to me like that in years. When the call ended, I stared at my reflection in the window. My chest felt tight, as if the air inside the car had thickened. The driver glanced at me in the mirror, eyebrows slightly raised. He was young, polite, the kind of rideshare driver who made small talk about weather and roadwork. I didn't answer his silent question. Instead, the words burst out of me. "Turn the car around. Now." He blinked. "Ma'am, please, take the next exit. I'll pay whatever the extra is. Just turn around." Something in my voice must have convinced him. Without another question, he flicked on the blinker and veered toward the off-ramp. My heart pounded as the scenery blurred past gas stations, fast food signs, then the quiet of a rural side road. I pressed a hand against my mouth, trying to steady my breathing. The bag sat against my hip like a living thing. Every instinct told me to open it to see for myself, but I wasn't ready yet. Not until we were off the main highway, away from the border. I looked ahead, watching the exit sign grow larger, and felt the first real wave of dread settle into my stomach as we curved off the interstate into an empty service road leading deeper into the trees. The driver guided the car off the main road, his eyes fixed on the lanes ahead, while I sat pressed against the door, staring out at the blur of wet trees. My hands were still shaking, but a different kind of trembling, now the kind that comes from memory. I thought back to the first time Lyle called me for help. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because I'd just come home from my volunteer shift at the library. He'd lost his job at the warehouse, and his voice cracked when he told me, "Just a few hundred to cover the rent, Mom. We'll pay you back." Of course I said yes. He had a wife and a little boy. What mother wouldn't? Then came the groceries. "It's just until Dana's hours pick up," he promised. Then the car payment. Then the insurance. Each new request had a reason that sounded urgent and temporary. But the months bled into years. My pension checks shrank, our savings thinned, and yet I kept handing over money, convincing myself it was a bridge to something better for him. The thank yous, once heartfelt, became quick mutters, sometimes just texts. Dana stopped pretending altogether. She would roll her eyes or talk over me on speakerphone as though my help were a given. I told myself I didn't mind that love meant sacrifice, but deep down I felt the shift. The safety net I'd built had turned into their entire floor. I missed Thomas in those moments more than ever. He would have seen it happening sooner, the slow slide from help to dependency. But I had no one to talk to except the mirror. And every time I looked at my grandson's small face, I told myself it was worth it. The driver slowed as we turned down a narrow service road, and my eyes flicked to the bag by my side. I realized how many years I'd been carrying their weight without asking what it was made of, and for the first time, I wondered if this time it might crush me. It was last fall when they asked for the tuition money, $17,000 due by the end of the month. Dana was the one who brought it up. First, her voice tight with urgency, almost rehearsed. "It's for Grayson. He's being bullied at school. Every day he comes home crying." I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the phone. I hadn't seen any signs of that. Grayson had spent the weekend with me just 2 weeks before building pillow forts, telling me about a class project with a girl named Lila, laughing while we made cookies. Lyle chimed in. This private academy small classes better support. It's his best shot, Mom. But the tuition is out of reach for us. $17,000. That wasn't groceries or gas. That wasn't a few hundred to help them bridge a gap. That was a door they wanted me to open and walk through alone. I want to help, I said slowly. But maybe we could talk to his teacher first. Look into other public options. A different district, maybe silence. I knew that silence. Then Dana, again sharp this time. So you're saying no? I'm saying let's explore other paths first, just before we jump into something so large. Another pause, then a clipped goodbye. After that, everything shifted. No more video calls with Grayson. No more quick visits to drop him off. When I called, Dana said they were busy. Homework, errands, plans. At the grocery store one Saturday, I saw them. Grayson ran to me, arms wide. I held him tight. He smelled like peanut butter and sunshine. But Dana's voice cut through Grayson. Let's go. No eye contact. No warmth. They weren't just disappointed. They were done. One boundary, and I was out. That's when I realized for them, love came with an invoice. And this time, I hadn't paid it. 2 months. That's how long it had been since I'd heard Lyle's voice. No calls, no messages, no Grayson, just silence. Heavy and sharp. Then one Thursday morning the phone rang. Unknown number. I nearly let it go. But something tugged at me, curiosity maybe, or hope. Hey, Mom. It was Lyle. Warm, easy, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just spent 8 weeks wondering if I'd lost my son. Dana and I were talking, he said. We've been stressed. We thought, maybe we should all get away together. Reconnect. It's been too long. He spoke quickly, like if he paused, I might interrupt the spell. There's a cabin, he continued. In Quebec. Dana's cousin owns it. It's by a lake. Peaceful, remote. No pressure. Just us and Grayson. A long weekend. I felt my chest tighten. I missed them. I missed the family dinners. Grayson's laughter, even Lyle's sarcastic jokes. That sounds nice, I said, cautious. We can call a car for you, Mom, he said. It's too long a drive for you to do alone, and our car doesn't have enough room for everyone anyway. We'll follow behind in our car. You don't mind carrying a few extra things? Of course not, I replied. That evening, Dana stopped by. First time I'd seen her in weeks. She smiled, handed me a black overnight bag. Just an extra we couldn't fit. Thank you again. She chatted easily. Whether Grayson's excitement, how much they were looking forward to the fresh air. This trip is going to be so good for all of us, she said, her voice syrup sweet. I smiled back, but something inside me stayed still. Quiet. Watching. That bag sat in my living room all night. I didn't open it. Didn't touch it. But I found myself glancing at it more than once. By morning, the air felt clearer. I packed light. Set out the snacks. Double-checked the directions. Then I slid the overnight bag into the back seat, right next to me. We'd been on the road for nearly 3 hours. Trees blurred past the windows, tall and endless, the kind that made you forget time. The driver. A kind man named Terrence chatted gently about the weather and the border ahead. I smiled politely, but my mind was elsewhere, drifting between hope and hesitation. That's when my phone rang. Lyle's name lit up the screen. I answered quickly. Everything okay? Yeah. Just checking in, he said. His voice was light, almost forced. You've got that bag right. The one Dana dropped off. It's right next to me, I said. Why, just making sure, he said. Then came a pause so long I thought the line had dropped. You didn't open it or anything, did you? That pulled me up short. No, I said slowly. Why would I? No reason. Just, border checks and all. Then he said it. Quiet. Urgent. like it had weight. "I love you, Mom. I mean it." I hadn't heard that tone since he was a teenager and broke his arm in the middle of the night, scared and small. But this wasn't fear. This was final. My chest went tight. My fingers tingled. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I looked at the bag, sat beside it, felt the silence stretch too long. "Terrence," I said, my voice barely holding steady, "take the next exit." "Please." He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Everything okay, ma'am?" "Just, please," I whispered. He nodded and changed lanes. I didn't speak the rest of the way to the gas station. I just watched the trees. My hands sat folded in my lap like they belonged to someone else. And beside me, the bag sat, still quiet, zipped, waiting. Terrence pulled the car onto the shoulder of a quiet back road, lined with wet grass and a few crooked mailboxes. The sound of the engine idling filled the space between us. My fingers had been clenched in my lap the whole ride since that call, but now they moved on their own, reaching for the bag. "Are you sure you're okay?" Terrence asked softly. "I just need a minute," I said. My voice surprised me, steady but thin around the edges. He nodded and stepped out, giving me privacy. I pulled the bag onto my lap. It looked so ordinary. The kind of bag you'd toss into a trunk for a weekend trip. But it was heavier than it should have been for a child's things. I unzipped it slowly, my breath shallow. At first glance, it seemed harmless enough. Grayson's little dinosaur pajamas folded neatly on top. A coloring book, a small stuffed bear. But beneath that layer, something hard and tightly packed pressed against my fingers. I pushed the clothes aside and saw them rows of plastic-wrapped packages, uniform heavy. My stomach lurched. Even after all these years, I wasn't naive. I knew exactly what I was looking at. Drugs. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped the air out of me. My own son. My Lyle. The boy who once made me handmade cards on Mother's Day was now using me, an elderly widow, to move contraband across an international border. He hadn't even blinked, hadn't hesitated. The stuffed bear rolled off the seat onto the floor. I stared at the packages, my hands trembling, then zipped the bag shut with a sharp pull. Outside the car, the trees dripped with rain, the world eerily calm. Terrence got back in, glancing at me, but not asking. "Where to now?" he said quietly. I swallowed hard, pressing the bag to my side. "Home," I said. "Take me home." The car eased back onto the road, and I felt the weight of everything shift as we drove toward the confrontation waiting at my son's door. The ride back felt longer than the trip out, though the roads were the same. When we pulled into Lyle and Dana's driveway, their car was already there. The bag sat heavy on my lap, but not as heavy as what I knew now. I stepped out slowly. Terrence offered to help, but I shook my head. "I've got it," I said. I walked up their front steps, alone. Lyle opened the door, his face twisted in surprise. "Mom, why are you back?" Dana appeared behind him, her smile vanishing the moment she saw the bag in my hand. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just held the bag out and placed it on the doorstep, like it was a package meant for someone else. "I know what was in it," I said. Dana gasped, covering her mouth. Lyle's face drained of color. He stepped forward. "Mom, I know," I said, calmly, firmly. "Don't. There's nothing to explain." They both stood frozen. "You planned this. You used me. Without shame, without hesitation." I looked at my son. "You were ready to let me cross that border with drugs in my car. Ready to risk my freedom." "It wasn't supposed to be like that," Dana whispered. "It was exactly what you made it," I said. Behind them, Grayson peeked out from the hallway, holding his stuffed bear. His eyes locked on mine, and for a moment all I saw was confusion. Not guilt, not anger. Just a child caught in something far too heavy for his little shoulders. I took a breath and straightened. "It's over," I said. "No more help, no more money, No more covering your choices. I'm done, Mom Lyle said again, voice cracking. Please. But I had already turned back toward the car toward Terrence. Grayson's voice called faintly from the doorway. Grandma. I paused. My chest tightened. I'll come back for you, I said, without turning around. And I meant it. But not like before. Not on their terms. Not ever again. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow notepad, a calculator, and a list that stretched longer than I expected. Each item I crossed out felt like releasing a stone I'd been carrying for years. I canceled the automatic rent payment first, then the car insurance, then the shared grocery account. I called the credit card company and had the secondary card removed, closed the emergency fund account Lyle had access to. With each call, each click, I felt a strange mixture of grief and relief. I wasn't just cutting off money. I was cutting off a version of myself, the mother who gave without limits, the widow who filled her silence with caretaking. I dialed the lawyer next. He'd helped me with my will a few years back. When I told him what had happened, I heard his breath catch. Elnora, he said quietly, you need to put this in writing, all of it. We scheduled a meeting for the following day. I documented the contents of the bag, the phone call, the sudden reconciliation after months of silence. He helped me draft a statement in case things escalated, just in case they tried to paint a different picture later. Over the next week, Lyle called. Not just once. Repeatedly. The numbers were always different out of state local, but I knew. I didn't answer. Then one evening my phone buzzed again. Grayson's name lit up the screen. My heart clenched. But I didn't pick up. Not yet. I knew it wasn't him dialing. I'd seen this tactic before. Desperation disguising itself in a child's innocence. I powered off my phone and walked outside. The spring air was sharp but quiet. The kind of quiet I hadn't known in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't bracing for the next request, the next ask, the next crisis. I poured myself a cup of coffee and watched the sky fade from blue to gray. Peace didn't feel loud. It felt like the absence of being needed for the wrong reasons, and I intended to keep it that way. The call came on a Sunday morning just after sunrise. I had just finished sweeping the porch when the phone rang a number I didn't recognize. Something in me already knew. Is this Elnora Nash? The voice asked. Yes. This is Officer Lindstrom with U.S. Border Patrol. Your son, Lyle Nash, and his wife Dana were taken into custody this morning, attempting to cross into Canada with controlled substances. I closed my eyes, steadying myself against the doorframe. They listed you as the emergency contact, he continued. Their son, Grayson, is currently with a temporary placement. Child Protective Services will need to arrange a formal guardian unless you're able to take him. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I'll take him. That afternoon, Grayson stood in my doorway, clutching a small suitcase and the tattered stuffed penguin he'd loved since he could walk. His eyes were red, confused, but not crying. He didn't understand the full story. How could he? Hi, Grandma, he whispered. Hi, baby, I said, pulling him in gently. You're safe now. I made up the guest room with his favorite blanket, the one I'd kept all these years just in case. He didn't ask where his parents were. He didn't ask why I was the one picking him up. At bedtime, after a quiet dinner and a warm bath, he sat up in bed and looked at me. When are Mom and Dad coming back? I sat beside him, smoothing the sheets. They made some choices that weren't safe, I said slowly. So they're going to be away for a little while. But you're going to stay here with me. I'm going to take good care of you. He nodded, pressing the penguin close. I stayed until his breathing softened. When I finally stepped out and closed the door behind me, I exhaled for the first time all day. Not because I had answers, because I didn't, but because I knew starting now, the cycle would not continue with him. Grayson started school the following week. The same little elementary I'd once walked through as a secretary long before any of this. The teachers remembered me. Some still called me Mrs. Nash out of habit. I just smiled and said thank you. He adjusted faster than I expected. He made friends quickly, took to the library like it was a second home, and came back each afternoon with stories about class pets and spelling bees. He loved recess. He said the lunchrooms smelled weird, normal things. At night we read together on the couch like I used to with Lyle when he was small, and his heart was still soft. Grayson had his father's curiosity, but none of the hardness yet. I wanted to keep it that way for as long as I could. One evening, after we'd finished a chapter about a bear who couldn't sleep, Grayson rested his head against my arm and whispered, "I like it here. It's quiet." I didn't say anything at first. My throat closed up. Then I kissed the top of his head and said, "Me too." That night, after he fell asleep, I opened the letter again, the one with the prison stamp on the envelope. Lyle's handwriting had changed. Less rushed, more careful. He said he was sorry, that he was scared, that he missed his son, but nowhere in the 3 pages did he ask how Grayson was doing. I folded the letter neatly and placed it back in the drawer without responding. I didn't need to say anything. The house felt different now. Not full, not lively, but safe, like it had exhaled. No more tension in the walls, no more waiting for the phone to ring with another crisis. The coffee pot still bubbled each morning. The porch light still flickered. But something had shifted. Not everything lost needs to return to be whole again. And some things like peace only come when you finally stop reaching back.